There are 4,218 PS2 games, and I'm beating every one of them. I've got to own the game because I'm playing everything on the original hardware, but I've beefed it up with a RetroTink 5X, some component cables, and more to come soon. Can I do this before I die of old age? I hope so. Drakengard was developed by Kavia and released in the US March of 2004. Directed by Yoko Taro, the game pushed for a dark tone that was slightly censored leaving Japan. Originally expected to be a one-off game, Yoko added multiple endings for players to find that gave more insight into the dark fantasy world. However, a sequel was eventually announced, and Yoko would be replaced, although he still helped with development. Can I beat this cult classic? Drakengard is a very odd game. It's got several endings that a lot of people like, and none of them are actually canon, or at least not that they say is canon. All of them are just different, except for later on when they release the Nier games, N-I-E-R, which Nier Automata, and the one before that on like the Wii. These are all games that kind of follow similar stories, or are at least in the same universe, and follow some of the same rules. But this very first game is where it all began. The first thing I do is check out the options of the game, and you get to see all of the controls, and I believe you can change all of the controls as well, which is kind of cool. It also tells you that there's air and ground controls, and I think you can switch each of those buttons separately, but I think if it says ground and air on it, you'll have to just use anything that it says it's going to do. So once you change the controls, it's kind of helpful, and I chose normal, of course, as it's the difficulty that the game started on, and we begin. So the story is that there are two great powers, the Union and the Empire, and this is during a time where dragons are still here, and they are fighting over pretty much control of this goddess, and really it's these seals. These seals have sealed away the Watchers, and the Watchers are like a bad group of dudes, and so one of the sides, the Union, is trying to save the seals and stop the Watchers, while the Empire is trying to open up the seal and then release the Watchers because they're insane. Apparently it's going to destroy everything and they just want to do that. So the game relies on your character, Kaim, and his eventual partnership with a dragon here to save the world, if he can. After a cutscene, we learn that the seal, one of the seals, is safeguarded by Kaim's sister, who is the Furai, and she is one of the goddesses of the seals, and if she dies, the seal is broken and the Watchers will be released, on top of the other three seals that are in different spots in the world. So she's the last one, he's got to protect her, although it's kind of weird that she's just not protected right now when they all know she's the seal. But hey, so Kaim is going to help her during this battle. Before we actually get into the game, we see that you start with a weapon that can get experience and level up, and that does all these different things. So there are several different weapons that you can get during your play, as well as level up as you use. The game starts right into gameplay, and I'm going to be honest with you, the game is broken up into a couple different parts that you'll do in kind of this weird order every single time. And then the first thing we do here is these ground battles, and to be honest with you, the ground battles are very boring and just kind of stiff. You walk around and you can jump and you can attack. You've got a couple different attacks, a little combo, and a jump strike, which by the way can be used to great effect during your combo by jumping and striking. It'll knock some enemies down. But they pretty much just travel in groups and you walk around this large open area killing enemies over and over. Most of the time, they're the same enemies. Sometimes there are groups of different enemies that are a little bit stronger, and you'll need to kill them for certain reasons. The story will tell you, kill these 8 guys, and they'll be marked on the minimap at the top right. The bottom left has your green meter, which is your magic meter. And whatever your weapon is, you have a different magic spell, and they're all different. And as you level up the weapon, the magic spell gets stronger. Yellow is your health, and you'll be able to heal that by just picking things up off the ground. The enemies will drop, which is helpful. And you won't find anything else. You'll just be walking around killing enemies. They'll eventually drop some stuff. You can dodge roll around to get out of the way of damage, but in the end, you just go around these enormous maps, finding hundreds and hundreds of little red circles and sometimes these yellow pulsating things, and that's it. You walk around and destroy the things the game wants you to destroy to move on. You see here that these guys are labeled as the targets. That's because these are the guys we gotta kill in this portion of the game. As you kill people, you get experience. You can gather up a chain of enemies that you've killed and, get experience for the weapons, which is important. Apparently, to get different endings in the game, you'll need to grind out weapons. Also, you'll just need to do it because it makes the game much easier. I mean, these sections are fairly boring, to be honest with you. I don't really like them. I feel like the combat is very shallow and it's just big groups of enemies. It's kind of like you know, the Warriors games. There's just a bunch of enemies that you're kicking, then they're kicking their butts, but it just doesn't, it's not very fun. There's not a lot going on. The only thing that happens sometimes is the bigger enemies, you can't combo very well, so you've got to hit them a couple times and get out. And some of them are resistant to magic if they are red. If they're red, they're resistant to magic, so you might as well not use it. And there's only two things you can do: swing your sword or use magic, so half of your kit is suddenly completely unavailable to fight these dudes. And I don't know, man. This kind of combat is just very shallow for me, and because the maps are so big and mostly uninteresting to me, it just wasn't that great. During this first battle, I get Bonebreaker, and it tells you the magic attack is Ymir's Fang, although I don't know what that is, but this is practically a large axe, and it's our first weapon, so now we can switch between these weapons on the fly by setting them in the options menu so that you can do that, although I think you can just switch to any of them at any time almost. But the nice thing is that these weapons will level up individually from each other, and you can go into levels you've already completed to gather more experience. This is very important to get other endings, like I said a second ago, but just to know if you want to level your weapons up, you can take them into any map and just fight for a while. Not that it's fun, but it might be necessary. We get to the point where we've gotten inside the castle grounds, and we see a dragon dying on the castle grounds, and we say, hey, we're gonna kill you because our parents were killed by dragons, we hate dragons, but we are also mortally wounded as we came into the castle. Not sure why, but the only way to live, apparently, is to make a pact with the dragon, which will also have the dragon live as well. And the dragon hates humans because humans are bad, nasty creatures, and we hate the dragon because they killed our parents. It's just not going well for anyone. But apparently the dragon's like, maybe. So we decide to save the dragon and beat everyone's ass around it so that we can make this pact and both of us live. I equipped the axe for this level, although you'll see very quickly that I go back to the sword because not only is it faster, but the magic attack is pretty good. This magic attack is fine, but in the end, this one's just so slow that it's not worth fighting enemies with it because the sword's combo can stagger a lot of the enemies very quickly. This one doesn't always get the stagger off in time. A lot of the times I find myself not wanting to finish the combo and just doing a quick jump attack because I don't swing fast enough, so I'm not really that excited to use it after this. A common thing to have happen are these big enemies just coming in and clobbering you. Now, like I said, the jump attack is really useful, and this weapon is very strong when you do a jump attack, and it will just send them flying, which is great, it's helpful, but practically the only way to fight both of these enemies who are right next to each other is to continuously jump attack and knock them off their feet. Otherwise, they can attack right through your swings. So it's not worth doing anything else but jump attacking them until they die. The dragon and I put our balls together to make a pact, and for some reason we're both healed. But during a pact with another creature, which you don't have to make a pact with a dragon, it can be with any other creature. If you make a pact with someone, you lose something out of the equation, and for some reason, Kaim loses his voice. Something that at the beginning of the game here, he's been screaming bloody murder and just like crazy stuff. Well, he loses it, and the dragon must speak for him. You know, the dragon who hates humans. The dragon who probably saw the dragon who killed his parents. So now that dragon speaks for him. Out of all the sections of the game, the ones where you're flying the dragon around feel pretty fun. I actually liked these sections a lot. It's a little bit more interesting flying around and trying to dodge things because the dodge feature is instant and you can continue moving and firing. There's lots of different enemies and different ways to fight them. You'll eventually be able to lock onto multiple enemies and fire fireballs at everyone, and the whole goal is to speed past things and do a 180 turn and dodge things, try and get things out of the way just in time so you don't get hit. These sections are fairly fun, and I enjoy them. Even the magic spell the dragon has, as you level it up, just like you would a weapon, the magic spell just homes in with all of these crazy beams, blasting everything in sight. And it's a lot of fun. It's still not the greatest balance all the time, but it is way more fun than the ground sections. After getting our first taste of combat with the dragon, we then have to fight a ton of enemies, and as I was saying, the magic here is important. As you kill things, you gain your magic meter, and you can use it to destroy tons of enemies all at once. Well, there's so many enemies here, it's totally worth saving up your magic for them so that you don't have to fly in between all this stuff and kill them, although it is fairly cinematic when you do. But once you do that, the magic spell kills all of them, and it's a lot more fun after that. There is this big flying ship that took a few tries to actually figure out how to fight because they are strong, and if you just fly directly at them, they hit you with their little cannonballs they fire. For some reason they're firing cannonballs and not magic, I don't know. But they hit you and they can hurt you pretty badly. So you must fly around and make sure that you hit the specific parts by targeting them, like I said you can do by holding down the attack button and running the crosshairs across them. Once you target them, they turn red to like this yellowish color, and you know that you're going to target them. You don't even have to be facing them at that point. As long as you let go of the button, you will fire fireballs that will home in on them. And once they home in on them, they'll start to break the ship apart, and it becomes much easier, as long as you do this. If you don't, and you do it like I do, you just get hit in the face too much. This next section I'm not really particularly fond of either. See, the dragon, instead of flying way up in the air, is now skimming across the ground, and you're fighting ground troops, which at first seems pretty easy, right? Way too easy. You just fire fireballs at the ground and blow up large swaths of enemies. But you can also get off of the dragon and jump on the ground and begin fighting. This means that you can go back and forth between them for one reason or another. And really the one reason that really is that once you get further in the game, enemies will begin volleying arrows and magic shots right into the dragon's face, killing it very quickly. Now you don't actually lose the dragon, you just fall off of the dragon. After a couple seconds, you can then just get back on the dragon while you're walking on the ground. Now obviously the dragon is way faster than you and can hit way harder, but it doesn't actually kill a lot of the enemies later on in the game, the magic resistant ones. For some reason, they just take like no damage from the fireballs. So you gotta get on the ground and whack them with your sword, because I guess the dragon is the only thing it can do is shoot fireballs. But eventually you'll end up at a spot where you can't even fly the dragon anyway, and I have no clue why it's even there, because they shoot so many shots at you, you can't fly around. So it's just worth it to jump down and fight yourself. As we try and reach our sister in the castle, we find ourselves in these tight quartered areas, and we'll do this a few times during the game, where we're in small rooms fighting lots of enemies, and really you can just run past them. I mean, yes, the experience is helpful if you're going for endings or if you want to be more powerful, but sometimes there's just so many enemies, and there's like 2 buttons, combo and magic. That's it. And jump, I guess, but jump isn't really that helpful in combat other than jump attacking, but there's so many dudes all around you that you just need to slowly and meticulously clear out entire rooms so you can get through them, or you're gonna get hit. And if you run fast, that's great, but again, like I said, it's a choice. Do you want to get the extra experience? Do you want to sit here and fight kind of really boring fights so you can get that extra experience? Well, I didn't. I only went for one ending. I'll explain more of that at the end of the game, but right now I just kind of want to get through the game. Once we get through this section, we see our friend Inuart, who is trying to help us get to our sister, in this particularly odd scene where it's very dramatically having them jump around, and he's not actually trying to save her, it looks like. I mean, I understand the idea, but his actions don't look like he's trying to save her. And then we get this very specific another part where you go through and it's this isometric view, almost like, like a Diablo game or a Path of Exile game, except that the enemies are not at all hard here. For some reason, this is literally just a walk up to the next area. You don't have to kill any enemies, they give you almost no experience, and they just all flop around on the ground for you when you hit them. It's very odd. I don't know why this section exists. I honestly feel like it's not helpful in the least, and you just have to accept it. Inuart is also trying to stop them from killing her because obviously she's a seal, and if they do, they break the seals and they open up the Watchers, so that sucks. So he's trying to help, although he has ulterior motives. He likes my sister, ew, gross. And so I'm like, I can't speak and they don't know what to do, and I'm just killing people left and right. I've always filled with bloodlust, apparently. But then we get just these awkward scenes. My favorite is him showing his tongue down there at the bottom left of the screen, because that's the seal of the pact you make is exactly where you lose something. So my seal is on my tongue because that's, I guess, where my voice comes from, and as Kyoto sticks his little tongue out. Anyone who makes a pact will have that. And Inuart is like, hanging out by my sister, being weird. It's just kind of weird, and so now he wants to take us to wants to take my sister to the elf village because of their neutrality, or in the fact that they're eternal or something. I mean, they have a seal around them anyway, so why not take her towards another seal? The seals that the Empire is going after. Probably not a good idea, but guess what? He's the only one who can speak here for some reason, and so we decide to go with them. We get this song from Inuart as we all kind of smile with our eyes closed for some reason over there. And he's, I don't know, happy about stuff, mostly because he gets to travel with my sister. So, yeah, there's that. We get to the elves, and oh, sad day, they're getting attacked already, which kind of blows, and that's just what happens. I mean, they're after the seals. Did you guys not think that they would probably be at the other seals, killing people to get the seals unlocked? I mean, I don't know. In my head, that makes sense, but hey, guess what? These people aren't, viewing this story from outside, so maybe they don't. After flying around as the dragon and going through a forest on both the dragon and on foot, we do this isometric view thing again to go towards the elf village. Our dragon tells us once we get there and realize we need to go somewhere else that Verdale, a guy who also has a pact with a petrified dragon, can speak to her somehow. He's at a temple in the desert near one of the other seals, and he wants us to go there. The elves are dead and the seal is broken. There's no reason to be here, so that's what we go do. So Inuart and my sister go to the desert temple, and we get to see this message in blood. It's something about the Watchers. I don't know. Obviously, it's a cult, so we just read it and get the crap out of there. Here is one of the first spots where flying around as the dragon over these ground portions gets you shot down with arrows constantly. I mean, it's like a never-ending shot in the face with these poison arrow things, and it's not worth being on the dragon except to travel to the next area to fight dudes. Now, they will shoot you with their own arrows, so you gotta watch out for that. And these guys are all red, so they're resistant to magic. So it's pretty much just fight them like this. Now, there is an interesting mechanic I didn't talk about that I finally figured out around this point, which is in the middle of your combo, your sword or weapon will flash. When it flashes, you can press the magic button to do this like large magical attack. Although it isn't counted as magical, it's just another combo piece. And it will hurt the guys that are red as if it wasn't magic. But it does do a large area of damage around you, which is very helpful. So you'll want to use it as you're fighting enemies because it's just too helpful. So what I was doing for this was pretty much just square, square, triangle when my sword would flash. It will flash at different points in the combo, not always the same spot. So you can just try it with each of the weapons, and when it does the flash in the combo, you press triangle and you'll do a cool thing. We determined that the elves were actually taken somewhere else, and there's nothing else left for us here. However, someone from the fairy village from far away crawls over to us and says, "We're being attacked, can you please help us?" And Kaim's kind of an asshole, so he just like kicks the kid. I'm not really sure why, but we have a bloodlust that can only be sated by killing Imperials, so I don't really know what we're supposed to be doing here. The dragon's like, are you going to take lives or save lives? And it's like, I think he wants to take lives. So he does go over to the fairy village to help, but it's only because he gets to kill. So that works. After some more fighting and practically all the sequences in a row that we've done before, flying in the air, flying on the ground, attacking on the ground, and then some isometric view, we find this guy who is betrayed his brothers or just wasn't there. I'm not exactly sure. I feel like there's a little bit more to it that I don't quite understand. Apparently he's not the greatest person deep down. He's got some weird characteristics. And all I'll say is that here his brothers or his family is dead in a fire and he says it's his fault. This little fairy is like making fun of him and forces him into a pact. I'm not sure how he's forced into the pact. He just doesn't want to know or remember what happened, so he wants to make a pact with the fairy. The fairy's like, yeah, we can just make a pact and then I'll be fine. And so yeah, he makes a pact with them. The pact for this guy, Leonard, is actually to lose his sight, which is supposed to help him not see the horrors that he's committing. So he's strong and he's actually a character you can use. I never use any of the other characters. Apparently they are temporary characters in battle. Not everywhere you can use them, just in those very specific sequences, and I don't. I never use them once. I don't know why. It just felt like I would lose experience for my main dude, and that was kind of the point. So I just kept playing him. But this guy is like, now he's blind, but he's strong? I'm not really sure. But oh no, the dragon stops hearing Verdale's voice, which is the place that Firai and Inuart just went. So we gotta go figure out what's going on with them. On our way, we start fighting a little bit more tougher enemies with the flying sections, and they're like gargoyles and other dragons and stuff like that. They are a little bit more tough. They'll fly around as if we're playing Ace Combat and we're doing some dogfights in the air, which is a little bit more fun. I liked those sections a little bit. It's also nighttime, so we get a bit of a different palette on screen, which is cool, I guess, but we still fight a lot of the same enemies. We meet up with Verdale, and he's like, don't let the seals break, and I'm like, dude, that's what I've kind of been trying to do, but it's not going well. well. They've broken seals, and my sister's seems like she's in pretty big trouble, man. Inuart is captured by the Empire, and Inuart is being brainwashed. Obviously, they want to kill her so they can break the seal, but then this young child is like taken over by the Watchers and saying weird things, doing weird things, and they brainwash Inuart to feeling bad, and so he turns against us. We make it to the desert where we're supposed to be protecting the seal there, and apparently we're getting attacked by ghostly wraiths. Now, these sections are starting to become longer. We're doing the flying sections longer, we're doing the ground sections longer, there's more enemies to fight, but it's all the same. And I just am not finding it very fun. And maybe people have liked this game a lot for the story more often than the gameplay, but the gameplay is just not engaging at all. It's walk up and smack things a few times, and if it doesn't work, run away and come back and do a jump attack or use some magic on them, and that's it. It's over and over and over in these open environments that are kind of bland, and it's just big old armies. Those have never been as fun for me as games that specialize in doing this type of stuff. I think they made too many different sections of the game, and none of them are like the best. The dragon flying section is the best in the game by far, like as much fun as I had doing it, but it still is rough around the edges. Apparently there is a creature's voice coming from the desert, a Gaol or something, Gaol, and they can kind of hear it, at least Vertile can hear it and the dragon can hear it, and they know where it is, and so we've got to go take care of things. Once we move on a little bit, we find this elf woman who is apparently insane. I don't know, she's insane and she's like eating kids or something. I feel like it's just shock value. Like, it isn't very interesting. You never see her do it, and all she does is mention it a couple times, and then that's the last you hear of it. So to me, it feels much more like shock than you know, a purpose, but she makes a pact and she loses the ability to have kids, which I guess, you know, she's eating kids. Maybe she shouldn't be. This is probably a blessing in disguise. We go through quite a number of battles against the same enemies from the beginning of the game and a couple extra ones that really don't have much else to do with anything. It's just kill as many enemies as you can in the direction you're supposed to go, and that's it. It takes like a couple hours to do these sections too. It's just not that fun. We find this elven woman eventually, and we find that she's gonna be our party member, and this is where she mentions the children she's eating, so gross, and I don't know why we accept her in the party. It doesn't really make any sense, especially with Vertile there, who's like the voice of reason, because I don't have a voice. And we accept her, and she comes over and does some weird stuff, but yeah, that's the last we really hear of it. My sister, myself, and Vertile are trying to escape, and then we find that after Inuart is brainwashed, he gets into a pact with a dragon, a black dragon. This dragon also happens to be the dragon that killed my parents. Somehow, just somehow, this is what happens. So he makes the pact and he comes to fight us, and he actually wins the fight against us because he's just, I don't know why he's so much more powerful at this point than us. We are too late for the seal in the desert and this area as well. Just all the seals are being broken. So the only seal left apparently is my sister. And well, I wonder where she is with Inuart right now. We now have to get to the Empire the short way, and we learn that there's a little path we can take, but there are some golems that we have to fight along the way in small little ravines that we can fight with our sword or the dragon. Obviously, it's better to fight this big, huge thing with the dragon, so we just keep 180 flipping and coming in for some fireball attacks until he dies. We get to see a cool cutscene where the good guys are getting attacked by these huge golems being summoned from the earth, which sadly just start destroying them, so we've got to take them down. These aren't particularly difficult battles, and we take them down pretty swiftly. I don't even die once. It's just, you know, I don't know, man. This game is a little bit boring. So we beat the big, huge golems, but suddenly there's like these big fireballs that come around and just destroy everything. Literally everyone except for us and Vertile dies. And so now we have to like go take care of things. It's the death of the goddess is on its way because, of course, she's a seal. Yes, it's on its way. We already knew that. Enemy health has become more spongy, and we just fight more and more and more dudes in longer and longer sections. And at this point, I'm already over the gameplay. It's just not the greatest. I know I keep saying that, but man, every time I come to one of these parts and it takes an hour and a half to get through, where I'm pressing square, 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 triangle, square, square, triangle, square, square, triangle, over and over, it's, you know, it's too repetitive. There is a point where games are too repetitive. All games are repetitive in some fashion, right? But what surrounds the repetitiveness? What are the things you're doing? What is the flavor? And in this game, the flavor is literally the same enemies we've been fighting in the same bland environments with the same couple buttons and almost nothing new. So that's why it feels too repetitive. We see here Inuart talking to the weird child and also our sister laying on a bed, which that's weird, but you know what? That's okay. Inuart wants to come get us because, again, he's been brainwashed. Our sister's just not saying anything. No one's saying anything until he finally says something again, but he's talking about love in a weird way. He's a creep. The battle with Inuart and his dragon is pretty tough. I actually like these fights because you've got to dodge constantly and dodge at the right times. You've got to use your magic to hit him, and you also need to wait until he goes to hit you by flying up in the air. That's when you can get real close to him and smack him a couple times with regular fireballs without having to lock on. When you lock on, usually it fires these small fireballs that do some damage, but the big damage comes from just walking up or flying up and smacking him with a fireball straight from your mouth. It does the most damage to him, he loses the most health, but you've got to be ready for it, because if you aren't, you're not going to hit him, and he's going to do all these crazy combos on you, and you're just going to have to dodge. So you have to constantly be ready. Now, I didn't mention this earlier, but flying around sections like this is a little different, because your aim, your reticle, is on the screen at all times, even if you can't see it. You are constantly locked onto this dude, and so anytime you turn, your reticle is somewhere out in 3D space. You can bring it back to the screen for you to see the entire time, and it takes a little bit of getting used to, and by the time I get used to it, the game's about done. So it just took too long to feel comfortable flying the dragon in situations like these, even though these are more fun than the regular parts where you're fighting regular enemies practically en masse. This is a much more fun strategic fight where you have to figure out what to do, but then the reticle thing comes to bite you in the ass. It's just hard to control sometimes. We're now in the middle of a castle that's just chock full of dudes, and a lot of them are red, which means my big, huge magic meter you can see down there is just useless. A lot of these dudes take no damage from it, so it turns into me doing jump attacks and doing running attacks, which are, they're helpful, sure, but is it worth running away constantly, turning around, and then coming to do some special attack on them? I don't know. It's just enormous amounts of fighting. We do make it through the castle, and we see the crazy child walk around talking about the Watchers over and over, and we see our sister dead, and I believe she killed herself, so that's helpful. She broke the seal herself, which, it still broke the seal. I think she was just tired of everything, which I probably would have been too. With our sister dead, Inuart loses his mind because he was brainwashed and realized he was brainwashed, and now he's here to fight us again, probably because he just can't handle things, and so we beat him again. We then have to fight a large boss after we go through a couple more sections of flying around. This is a big special dragon who apparently is so strong that our dragon does not want to fight it, but we end up fighting it anyway. And he's surrounded by all these little flying dudes, which at first seem like maybe you should be taken care of a little bit here and there. They fire these little beams around and they do track onto you, which sucks. So what you have to do is ignore them and fly at different heights, at different speeds, and make sure that you are constantly dodging. The whole point of this is to fly away from them and then get into a spot where you can go right at them and fire a couple unlocked shots, like regular fireball shots. You have to do it this way or you'll just hit too many of those little flying dudes in the air. And when you hit him with those, it actually staggers him, stopping him from hitting you with his devastating fire shots himself, which is very difficult to deal with. This boss took me the longest out of the whole game to fight because it's just kind of tough. All those little guys around him make it very difficult to maneuver, and you get hit by them just too often. Those little homing shots come after you aggressively, and it's hard to take care of any of them, and then they all respawn. At least that's what it looked like to me. So I focused on just shooting him, and eventually he would go into this little ball form, and you got to be quick because he's healing. So once he goes in the ball form, you hit him a couple times with unlocked shots or lock shots, whatever you need to do. And then once he comes out, you just keep going after him. We then go through some extensively long areas where we're on the ground fighting these giant dudes and enemies that come from the ground because after you kill some targets, they will spawn out of the ground. They are difficult. They have a lot of health, and you just need to pay attention to what's going on. It takes so long to fight some of these guys in these bland, open areas. It's it's just not that fun. We get to the castle where we're trying to find her sister. Of course, she's already dead, of course. But the little girl who was talking about the Watchers and stuff, she's the one we are after. So we go to fight her, and we have to go through just tons of dudes. It's just, it's just armies of guys, and you press square a bunch. That's it. Apparently, Vertile stops Kaim from exacting revenge. Apparently, killing a child is too evil of a crime, even though the child is destroying the entire world. So I'm really not sure if letting the child destroy other children is a worse crime. You know what I mean? Anyway, Vertile does try his best to seal the evil within the child, but it doesn't really work, and instead the child gets really, really big and turns into the last boss. This boss only took several times around to fight. Honestly, it's not a hard boss fight, at least in this ending. Don't forget, there's like 5 or 6 endings to the whole game. So the first set of fight parts for this is just dodge a few things that she throws at you, turn around and smack her with your fireballs, and then eventually she starts to do like crazy bullet hell mode. There's just these expanding rings coming from inside of her, and that's it. It just happens over and over, and you've got to be able to fire across them. That's it. Just kind of try and figure out the pattern as best you can and avoid them when you can. Otherwise, it's just, as long as you have enough health, you can just fly through them and blast her with fireballs, and the fight's over pretty quick. In the end, once we beat the boss, we realize we can make another seal, but someone has to become the seal themselves. And for some reason, our dragon decides to become the seal. I'm not really exactly sure why, maybe because she hates humans and can't change her mind, except for you. She actually likes you and tells her your name, or tells you her name, and it's the first time any human has known a dragon's name, which, okay, sure, I guess. Her name is Angelus. That was it. I mean, sure, cool. I mean, it's the idea behind it. I actually kind of liked that. It's the one thing in the story I actually liked a lot. The story itself is very bizarre. It's very much a video game story. There's some seals, there's places to break the seals, and when the seals break, there's a bunch of, bad guys that come out. And we're pretty much just, I think some of the stuff surrounding it, like there's some more dark stories. I mean, one of the guys is like terrible. I mean, the one eats kids, this child is destroying the world, So it's, I mean, sure, it's a little interesting, but just playing this game itself and beating one ending doesn't really feel the greatest. Now, if I were to beat the other endings, it might make things a little more interesting, but honestly, after looking up the endings, I don't think it would have made it that much more interesting for me. So it's fine-ish. I don't really think the game is the greatest. I think on my tier list, I would give this game a C. It's still a game I would recommend people play because it does somehow fit into the Nier stories that are much more recent and still somewhat ongoing. I'm not sure if they are. And you might not like that I didn't really like any of this stuff. That's okay. The gameplay was horribly boring most of the time, but the dragon parts were sort of fun. It just got a little too samey after a while for that part, but at least it was more interesting. It was more fun. The ground parts, the fighting with Kaim was just... after about 10 minutes, the first time I did it, I was like, I'm really not interested in this. I think I've been spoiled by all the games that have like fun, interesting combat. This combat is so stiff. So the story ends, the seal is there, we're trying to rebuild humanity, I think. I'm not really sure, but the other endings do other things. So, take that as you will. I won't take points off because I didn't see the other endings. Obviously, the other endings do have some kind of, matter in some sort of way and are interesting. But I didn't like the story, just the base story very much. It didn't really feel... I don't know. Maybe it's because it's so similar to a lot of other video game stories. It just felt samey to me. So take that for what you will, but I'd give this a C. I still recommend people give it a try because it does lead into other games, and I think they're very interesting. I mean, one of the bosses is a big baby or something. I mean, there's a big child, but big baby. Thank you so much to everyone who watched the video this far, and thank you so much to everyone who has donated or become a member of the channel. The reason this game was even played was because someone requested it, so thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you to all the people who are in the stream. I really appreciate both the company, talking with everyone, learning new things about games. And that's one of the cool things about this is anyone who knows a game gets to come in and say, hey, I know a bit about this game. And we get to learn a lot more about it. And it's like every game someone comes in and says, I know a lot about this game. We get to learn a bunch of cool stuff. So you wouldn't get that experience too many other places. So thank you so much, everyone. This was game 105. I will be back for game 106 soon. Later.